Hello guys, today I'm here with Steve and his LS swapped DeLorean. You're looking at a full V8 shoved into the back of this DeLorean. Now, obviously this is not super simple to do, right, Steve? So how on earth did you manage to put an LS in the back of a DeLorean?
Well, yeah, it's a little complicated, but the truth is, it's a lot of it's my labor. But I had some really talented guys that have done this before that I got connected with that kind of helped me with some of the engineering concepts and some of the pieces and parts to put it all together. Without their help, I'd have been a little bit lost, but I think 90% of it is me.
Yeah, obviously you had a basis, right? So you didn't have to, fortunately, you didn't have to do it completely from scratch, but still, this is a ton of effort to get this in here. So let's talk about what this motor is. So this is an LS4, right?
Yeah, so the LS4 is a 5.3 all aluminum engine. It comes out of a front wheel drive Chevrolet. They're 04 to 08 era Malibu SS, Pontiac Grand Prix, GXP.
Front wheel drive cars?
Front wheel drive cars, transverse motors. And they're about 3 inches shorter than, say, your Corvettes or your Camaros. And I needed all bit of those 3 inches to fit this thing in here. But it's also a little bit of a Frankenstein. So underneath here, the dress up, I've got an LS2 6-liter intake that's installed 180 degrees transverse. Divorced mount throttle plate, fly-by-wire. Had to build a custom little 90-degree turn to get the clearance I needed. The engine management system is all LS3 injectors, LS3 computer and wiring harness. So it's all managed LS3. And then an oil pan off of a front sump Pontiac GTO, 04 to 06 GTO.
Okay.
And that front sump oil pan, it looks a little menacing. It hangs out the bottom, but truth be told, I've never hit it. As long as you're careful, it ain't gonna go anywhere.
Makes oil changes easy though, huh? With the filter
Easiest oil change on the planet. You don't need a lift or anything.
So you've actually, you know roughly what this is making power-wise too, right?
I know exactly what it is. So I had to have it dyno tuned to get it dialed in for all the different LS pieces that are all over this car. But it dynoed at 328 wheel horsepower.
Good Lord.
324 foot-pounds. The curb weight on the car is about 1760. So it's a lightweight car. So
yeah.
Plenty of power to move it around.
It's certainly an upgrade over the factory power plant that is rather asthmatic.
Yeah, the factory 2.8. Look, there's different schools of thought on it. The purists don't like me for this, but I know that the 2.8 Peugeot Volvo motor, the PRV they called it, they're anemic. They're about 95 wheel horsepower. On top of that, they're highly problematic. The injection system would leave you stranded. You wouldn't be able to start the car when you leave the grocery store or whatever. But LS is just reliable as can be. But yeah, and then this thing is mated up to a Porsche transaxle. It's called a G96. It's a 6-speed out of the 996 series 911s, which are from 99 to 2001. Those 3 years. That's the go-to transaxle for this application because it's a 2-wheel drive rather than an all-wheel drive like some of those 911s had. So.
You know what I think is awesome about that? So obviously you have that Porsche transmission, but the LS is actually so far back that I think this would technically be considered a rear engine layout, right?
It's a rear engine.
So in some sense, you have a Porsche on the basis term, in some sense. Which I have to ask, with this having that much power, right? Porsches are generally known for having a sort of a unique rear end slide out because of their engine layout. Do you notice anything like that with this setup?
Yes, I do. The worst of it pushes really smooth. It handles really well. But when you're on a sweeping corner, a sweeping turn, like say a freeway overpass, if you're in that turn and you just a little bit too much, you can feel that car want to dart away from you, and you got to kind of fight it a little bit because you could feel that weight. But it's not terrible. I mean, it's pretty manageable.
Yeah, I mean, imagine it sounds pretty phenomenal too, especially with the 6-speed, just the driving engagement you get from this car.
Yeah, so what's really nice about the cabin on this car is it's really tight and really thick. It's got a lot of sound deadening properties to it. So when you're in the car, it's comfortable, it's quiet, there's no drone, you're not getting a headache. Outside sounds pretty good. It's what I did on the exhaust was try to keep it as quiet as I could possibly do because I like a good sounding exhaust, but I also know that the shorter the distance, the louder it's going to get. And I've got a real short amount of run. So I got headers running forward, and then they wrap the pipe wraps around the frame, and then one little muffler that can fit in the space. So I got mufflers that were about as quiet as you can get, that are packed pretty tight.
Right.
And it still has a nice sound, but it's not gonna give you a headache.
Which is great because you're actually from the greater Phoenix area. I've seen this car around, and we're actually currently in Williams. And so you've managed to drive this car up here, and you said you drive it to a variety of other car shows too, right? They're throughout northern Arizona. So you are, in fact, using your car.
Yeah, I have no problem road tripping the car. I've done a couple of, I've done 3 or 4 200-mile, 250-mile road trips. And the car I've had it done since the 4th of July weekend a year ago. So we're almost at 4th of July now. So it's been done for about a year.
Nice.
And I've got around 4,000 miles on the car since I got it running.
That's awesome.
So I use it.
Yeah. So do you know how long roughly it took you to do a lot of this?
You know, surprisingly enough, this build was pretty quick. Man hours, I couldn't tell you. I don't really pay attention to that. But the build of the car took me a total of 11 months.
Wow.
Start to finish.
Yeah.
However, it was a full-time gig. I mean, I was 5 days a week out in my shop for 6 to 8 hours a day working on the car. So 11 months of 40-hour work weeks on the car is what it took me. And that's not just a swap. It's a resto. The whole car came apart all the way down to getting the frames stripped and powder coated, and then rebuilding the entire car.
Yeah, that's what I was going to point out is the engine bay is obviously, it's clear that the engine wasn't just thrown in there. I mean, all of the walls of the engine bay here are cleanly finished, like everything's very professional looking, but that's also a good lead into the rest of the car, right? So obviously you have the engine swap, but what have you, I guess, changed or haven't changed about the rest of the car? And what was your sort of thought process behind it?
So the rest of the car, the majority of the car, I would say, outside of the drivetrain itself, is original DeLorean car. I've got KW coilovers on the car.
Okay.
So it's got adjustable coilovers, and it's lowered about 2.5 inches from stock.
Mm-hmm.
The brakes are factory brakes. There's not a whole lot of aftermarket, support for the car because
I believe it.
It's a low numbers car.
Right.
I was surprised that KW actually had a coilover for a DeLorean, to be honest with you. So the brakes, there are guys that can do some upgrades on brakes, like Mazda Miata brakes will fit on this.
Oh, okay.
They're not a whole lot of additional performance above the DeLorean brakes. So,
but if you want to keep the stock wheels, these are, what are they, 15s? Looks like?
They're 15 by 8s in the back, and the fronts are 14 by 7.
Okay, yeah, so you're definitely limited then if you want the stock wheels on what brakes will fit.
And then the front end, the lower control arm has a stabilizer assembly. It's aftermarket that basically ties into the shock and the lower control arm to get rid of some of that sway, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's the only other upgrade is a suspension. Everything else is DeLorean.
Yeah, and then it looks like you might have modified the radio, and then we've got the 6-speed on the inside.
You know what? That radio is a piece of junk, in my opinion. That'll get changed. I had that radio in a box, brand new, and I threw it in there. I hate it. I don't like it. It functions great. It doesn't fit the look of the car.
Right.
So I do have intentions of...
Somebody's got to make a retro 80s radio.
Well, there's retro ones, and then there's this really great single DIN Apple CarPlay type radio that has a display.
Is it wireless CarPlay too?
Yeah, Bluetooth. It's got
nice.
Bluetooth and all that. But it's actually, I've seen it. There's DeLorean guys that have it, but I want to say it's a factory single DIN radio out of a Porsche, out of some era of Porsche in the teens, the 20 teens, but I've got to do a little more research on it, but that's going to go away.
Yeah, eventually. I know that Porsche does in fact have a factory single DIN radio that they sell for like $1,000. It's insanely expensive for what it is.
Correct.
But it's even got a little single screen that I think shows your navigation.
Correct.
On it,
and that's the one I want.
I'm fitting with the gearbox.
Yeah. That's the one I want. And I've also heard that it takes a little bit of finagling to actually wire those in because a lot of those have that anti-theft software and stuff in them. So when you take them out of the original car, they won't actually work in another car. So you have to take it to somebody who understands how to delete that or whatever. So I'm going to probably do something creative with that radio along those lines and spend the money because I really would like to do that. It just looks proper in the car.
I think it says Porsche on it too, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Right?
I
So
think
that would be really funny to have 2 Porsche parts then in the
Yeah.
car. And I mean, obviously you've got the kicker subwoofer in the back there, so that would hopefully have a better audio system as a whole.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of amps hidden in here, and I got amps to the mids. I put new mids behind the upholstery panels, and then I just threw a little kicker in there to get me some sound. I'm not big radio sound stuff, but I wanted something.
It's nice to have some music. Yeah,
something that's good to listen to. Sure.
Okay, so I mean, that's a quick look at the rest of the car. So what is the best place if people wanted to check out some of your future builds, check out more of the DeLorean? What's the best place
most of what I do when I put it out there, videos, pictures of processes, of restorations I'm working on, I do mostly Instagram. It's just super easy. And I'm a 48-year-old guy. I'm not super tech savvy. I don't have to do YouTube videos and all that stuff. I just do some little bits here and there. I try to throw something on there once a week with what I've done for the week, but I use Instagram for the most part.
Well, in that case, that's what I'm here for, is to help you out with getting more of your cars out there. So
Appreciate that.
Here's your Instagram tag where people can check out more of your builds, because you're actually working on some future projects as well, right? So
yeah, I'm currently building. I've got a 71 Suburban that's doing an LT build with an 8L90 8-speed.
Nice.
I've got the body on a rotisserie and the frame's finished, but I'm working my way through that build. I've also got an 86 Nissan 300ZX that's going to get an LS swap as well. So working on those kind of simultaneously. I've got interior parts being made for the Z car, and I've got the motor and tranny going together that I've just finished, and the chassis I've just finished for the Suburban. So a couple builds at the same time. I always like to have 2 going at once, and I kind of go between them to keep it fresh. If I get kind of burned out on one, I can go look at another one for a few months. And
so it sounds like your main thing is you like taking vehicles that maybe you like or inspired by, but then you put sort of reliable, powerful engines, drivetrains in them so you can drive in places, just kind of use them.
Yeah, and you know, I'm kind of biased with the LS stuff because it's cost effective, and it's really easy to work. They're really easy to work with. So, you know, after you've done a few, you can almost do them with your eyes closed. They're so simple.
They're almost like a modular platform in some sense.
Yeah, very much. So I like to stick with that. I'm an LS guy. Always will be.
So there you have it. Well, with that, thank you very much for your time. Obviously, don't forget to check them out for more builds and some of the future stuff. But that is going to be the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, you can hit that thumbs up. I really appreciate it. And consider getting subscribed for more content like this in the future.